Welcome to the edited highlights of the Show Me the Money conference in Westport. We have put the highlights together for the people who couldn't be with us in Westport on the day. These are being made available by Crombie with the support of our sponsors. Now that the assisted decision-making legislation is on the Irish statute books, supporting the authority and choices of people living with the experience of disability becomes even more important than before. When it comes to money, the implications for the person living a good life in the community making their own choices are more obvious. The speakers at the Show Me the Money conference were asked to talk about how a person, close family, chosen friends and human service professionals need to approach the everyday issue of how to better manage money in your pocket.
It was a pleasure to have Fionnathan at the Show Me the Money conference. Fionnathan is a father and son team, Fionn, Crombie, Angus and Jonathan Angus, who have set up a business with their individualised funding arrangement so that Fionn can have a job, live in the place where he wants to live and make a significant contribution to the community that he's part of.
My name is Fionn.
And my name is Jonathan.
And we are here today to talk about how the use how to use the wage subsidy scheme to create meaningful employment.
The Wage Subsidy Scheme is a program of the Department of Social Protection that provides financial incentives to non-public sector employers of people with disability who work between 20 and 40 hours per week. And for the purposes of this program, they define disability as that which results in a perceived 20% or greater productivity shortfall. So it's a pretty wide open definition of people who can be employed on this scheme. Employment is subject to standard conditions, including PRSI contributions, annual leave, tax deductions, and the going rate for the job. The subsidy that the state offers is €5.30 per hour, which is reimbursed to the employer, and that's regardless of the wage that the individual receives. However, if the employer employs more people on the scheme, there's a top-up up to a 50% increase if the employer is employing 23 or more people. And when the employer employs 30 people on the scheme, then they are allowed an additional grant of €30,000 toward the cost of an employment assistance officer.
And what must an employer do to avail of the scheme?
So it's really quite simple. The employer needs to provide the employee with the terms and conditions of employment and a job description, and where one is available, a person specification. And that last thing is what we're all about in the way that we approached this wage subsidy scheme. The process is simply that the employer presents to the local employment services officer a short application form, which is available online, a current tax clearance certificate, a completed employee application form, and a bank authorization form. And then once the employment is approved and the employment has progressed, then there's monthly forms to submit, which is quite simple. It's something that's signed by both the employee and the employer that declares the number of hours that the employee worked in the previous month. So it's a backdated thing. So you have to, the employer has to initially cover all the expenses, and then the $5.30 per hour is reimbursed to the employer afterwards.
And how will it affect the employees' other benefits?
So people who are on disability allowance are often fearful of what work will do to their benefits. What we found is that in our case it was quite smooth transition and is quite fluid. We can inform them that Fionn has changed hours and they'll adjust it straight away. For the first €120 per week, there's no penalty taken off of your disability allowance. For every euro between 120 to 350, there's a 50% clawback on the DA, and above 350 a week, there's a 100% reduction in the disability allowance. So there would be a full loss of the €188 per week disability allowance if you were making an income of €423 a week. Of course, medical cards are often means tested. Travel card is attached to having some disability payment, so you'd have to look at whether those would be forfeit if the employment was such that the person was making a lot of money.
And how can we use the wage subsidy scheme to create a person-centered employment?
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting, and we want to tell you about what we've done, because there's no restrictions from the state as to the type of job that the person is fulfilling. So we thought, well then, why can't we create a job around the skills and interests of Fionn? And we asked a few people and no one came up with a reason why we couldn't. So that's what we've done. And we did a bit of a discovery process and we talked about different jobs that you might do. And can you tell people the 5 job titles that we came up with?
Yeah. So the job titles that we came up with were a street performer, a heritage expert, a filmmaker, a visual artist, and a freelance ambassador, and a community connector.
And we didn't just pull those out of a hat. In each case, you have strengths that would lend that you would be good at these jobs because of who you are. And we made a list in each category, but maybe we'll just mention one. So in that first job title of street performer, what do you have that would make you a good street performer?
Because I am a gifted fiddle player and I love to perform.
Yeah, and most of these jobs that we identified were jobs that you just do them. You don't need someone's approval to be able to be a filmmaker or even a freelance ambassador. You can do that. You can just call yourself that and then you are, if others believe you. But the heritage expert, we did have to get approval from the Heritage Council to do that one. So we listed the benefits of each job, and again, just one, the filmmaker. What would be some of the benefits we identified?
I get to collaborate with other people and sometimes celebrities, and I get to travel.
Right. So we looked at all of these, and we also looked, of course, at the sustainability financially of each. And we recognized that the busking, street performer, and being a heritage expert through the Heritage in Schools scheme are two things that pay for themselves. Yeah. And that being a filmmaker, a visual artist, or a community connector are things that don't necessarily pay for themselves. Maybe in the longer term they would. So we put all that together, we looked it all through, and which of these jobs did we decide would be the one that you would do?
All of them.
So we sort of connected them all together, and it's appropriate for a 19-year-old that he doesn't know who he wants to be when he grows up. So that was one of the reasons we decided, well, let's try all of these. And so Fionn initially worked the maximum, 39 hours, and later dropped that down to about 29 hours. And that's what you're currently working. So we think there's a lot of potential for this. Of course, it does require, in Fionn's case, and I think in most cases, some kind of a job coach. But I think that I think it could be scaled really well. And we don't have any experience with that yet, but we would like to engage some of you in a conversation about that. So if you have an interest in some kind of a worker collective or a collaborative, cooperative experience of people who are designing their own jobs, then we would like to talk with you more.
This video has been produced by Crombie, a collaborative network of families living with the experience of disability. Crombie works with one person at a time alongside their own people. We work to support each person to live their own life in their own home, making their own personal mark in the communities where they belong. For more information, see our website www.clombio.org or contact us by email connect@clombio.org or by mobile phone at 086 6036 900. This video was produced with the financial support of our sponsors.